Across the globe, hidden among towering mountain ranges and rugged landscapes, you'll find remote high-altitude cities that seem almost impossible to exist. These aren't just small villages, they're living, breathing urban centers built thousands of meters above sea level. But life at high elevation isn't easy. The thin air can trigger altitude sickness. Headaches, dizziness, shortness of breath, these are everyday realities for visitors. Even climbing a short staircase can feel like running a marathon. And getting there? That's an adventure on its own. Most of these cities are reached by narrow, winding roads carved into steep mountain terrain. One wrong turn and you're staring straight into dramatic cliffs and endless valleys below. The journey can feel intimidating, but that's part of the magic. Because once you arrive, everything changes. You're rewarded with stunning panoramic views, ancient traditions preserved for centuries, vibrant markets, colorful festivals, and cultures shaped by isolation and resilience. These cities aren't just high, they're historically rich and spiritually powerful. From carnivals celebrated above the clouds to man-made floating islands built on mountain lakes, these destinations offer far more than just cathedrals and temples. They offer stories, survival, identity. So lace up your hiking boots, take a deep breath, literally, and get ready to explore the 8 highest elevation cities in the world. Let's begin with number 8. Number 8. Bogotá, Colombia. Sitting high in the northern Andes at a breathtaking 8,596 feet above sea level, Bogotá isn't just Colombia's capital. It's a city that literally lives above the clouds. Built between 2 historically powerful mountains, Montserrat and Guadalupe Hill, the city feels naturally guarded. For centuries, these peaks have stood like silent protectors, shielding Bogotá from invaders and shaping its identity. Today, they're not just landmarks, they're symbols of resilience. And if you really want to understand Bogotá, you don't just explore it, you climb it. One of the most unforgettable experiences here is hiking up Montserrat. At the summit sits a historic church that was considered sacred even before the Spanish arrived. The view from the top? Absolutely unreal. The entire city stretches beneath you like a living painting, endless buildings framed by dramatic mountains. On the opposite side, Guadalupe Hill rises with its own spiritual presence, crowned by a shrine dedicated to Our Lady of Guadalupe, one of Latin America's most beloved religious figures. From nearly anywhere in the city, you can spot her watching over Bogotá. But the soul of the city truly comes alive in La Candelaria. This colorful, vibrant neighborhood is Bogotá's cultural heartbeat. Cobblestone streets, bright colonial houses, street art that tells stories of revolution and identity. And at its center lies Plaza Bolívar, surrounded by grand government buildings and the towering primatial cathedral of Bogotá. Here, history doesn't feel distant, it feels alive. At this altitude, even walking through the streets can leave visitors slightly breathless. But maybe that's part of Bogotá's charm. It forces you to slow down, to take deeper breaths, to truly take it all in. But here's the real question. If this is just the first city on our list, what happens when we climb even higher? Number 7. Quito, Ecuador. At a breathtaking 9,350 feet above sea level, Quito doesn't just sit in the Andes, it rests among giants. Nestled in the northern highlands within the Gualabamba River Basin, this high-altitude capital is surrounded by dramatic volcanic peaks, including the towering Pichincha volcano. On a clear day, you can see these massive mountains framing the city like a natural fortress. And just like Bogotá, the altitude here is real. You'll feel it in your lungs the moment you start walking uphill. But somehow, Quito moves at its own calm, unhurried rhythm. The city blends modern life with centuries-old tradition. One minute you're passing sleek cafes and contemporary buildings, The next, you're standing in one of the best preserved colonial old towns in Latin America. The locals? Warm, welcoming, and proud of their heritage. There's a peaceful, almost sleepy charm to Quito, but don't let that fool you. The history here runs deep. If you want to witness Ecuador's dazzling religious artistry, step inside the Museo Nacional del Ecuador, where priceless golden relics tell stories of ancient civilizations. Then wander through the historic center, where landmarks like the Quito Metropolitan Cathedral and the breathtaking La Compañía de Jesus showcase intricate gold-covered interiors that will leave you speechless. Every wall, every altar feels like a masterpiece. But if you want the ultimate view of this high-altitude capital, take a ride up to El Panecillo. Standing tall above the city is the iconic Virgin of Quito, a massive winged angel statue that watches over the skyline. From the top, you'll see Quito stretch endlessly beneath you, wrapped in valleys and guarded by volcanoes. It's the kind of view that makes you pause and just breathe it all in, thin air and all. But here's something to think about. If living at 9,350 feet already feels this surreal, how do the next cities on this list survive at even higher elevations? Number 6. Cusco, Peru. Now we're climbing even higher. At a staggering 11,152 feet above sea level, Cusco doesn't just sit in the Andes, it dominates them. The air here is thinner, the skies feel closer, and every step reminds you that you're walking through one of the most historic cities in South America. Built at the western edge of the Sacred Valley, Cusco was once the beating heart of the mighty Inca Empire. In fact, its name comes from the Quechua word Casco, meaning navel of the world. And when you stand in its central plaza, surrounded by mountains, you begin to understand why. This was the center of an empire that once stretched across much of western South America. In 1533, Spanish conquistadors seized control of the city, but they never completely erased it. Look closely as you walk the cobblestone streets, and you'll still see original Inca stone foundations beneath Spanish colonial balconies. Massive, perfectly cut stones, fitted together so tightly that not even a blade of grass can slide between them, still hold up entire buildings today. Cusco feels layered, ancient, alive. Because of its dramatic geography, the city has become the gateway to legendary trekking routes. One of the most famous? The demanding multi-day journey along the Salkantay Trek, leading adventurers toward the iconic Machu Picchu. Thousands come here every year chasing that once-in-a-lifetime hike. But Cusco isn't just about epic trails. It's about the everyday rhythm of life at 11,000 feet. Colorful markets spill into the streets. Women in traditional dress sell handmade textiles. Musicians play Andean flutes as travelers wander past centuries-old churches built on top of former Inca temples. One of the true highlights is the Mercado Central de San Pedro. Step inside and you're hit with the smell of fresh fruit, spices, sizzling street food, and local dishes. Around the back of the market hall, you can grab a simple menu del dia. Affordable, hearty, and exactly what you need after adjusting to the altitude. Cusco doesn't just show you history, it lets you walk on it. But here's the real question. If life feels intense at over 11,000 feet, how extreme do these cities get as we climb even higher into the mountains? Number 5. La Paz, Bolivia. If you thought Cusco was high, welcome to another level. Built into dramatic red brick mountains at a jaw-dropping 11,942 feet above sea level, La Paz feels like a city poured into a giant natural bowl. Homes cling to steep hillsides, stacked one above the other, stretching all the way up to the edge of the sky. The city sits near the eastern edge of the vast Altiplano, one of the highest plateaus in the world. And at this altitude, even simple daily routines feel intense. The streets are so steep and the terrain so dramatic that public transportation doesn't just run on roads, it floats above them. La Paz is famous for its cable car system, gliding silently over rooftops and valleys, giving you one of the most unique urban commutes anywhere on Earth. But beyond the altitude and the geography, what truly defines La Paz is its indigenous soul. Walk through the streets and you'll see women dressed in vibrant traditional attire, layered skirts, colorful shawls, classic bowler hats perched perfectly on their heads. The blend of ancient Andean culture and modern city life is powerful and unmistakable. To dive deeper into Bolivia's colonial past, stroll along Calle Jane. This narrow, cobblestone street feels like stepping back in time. For beautifully preserved colonial houses now serve as museums, each one packed with stories about Bolivia's complex and fascinating history. And then, there's the market you'll never forget. The legendary Mercado de las Brujas, the Witches' Market. Here, stalls overflow with unusual herbs, dried llama fetuses used in traditional rituals, handmade charms, potions, and spiritual artifacts tied to ancient Aymara beliefs. It's strange, it's colorful, it's deeply cultural, and it's unlike anywhere else in the world. La Paz doesn't try to be ordinary. It's bold, it's vertical, it's spiritually rich, and at nearly 12,000 feet above sea level, it demands your respect. But here's what makes it even more fascinating. If people can build a thriving city on mountains this steep and this high, how much further can humanity climb? Number 4. Lhasa, China. Now we're stepping into truly rarefied air. At around 12,001 feet above sea level, Lhasa rises from the heart of the vast Tibetan Plateau, the largest and highest plateau on Earth. Often called the roof of the world, this region feels otherworldly. Snow-capped mountains tower in the distance, some climbing beyond 18,000 feet, creating a dramatic natural fortress around the city. Officially part of the Tibet Autonomous Region, Lhasa has been the spiritual epicenter of Tibetan Buddhism for more than 1,000 years. Its name translates to place of the gods, and when you arrive, you understand why. There's a deep stillness here, a spiritual weight in the air. Dominating the skyline is the magnificent Potala Palace. Perched high above the city, this massive white and red structure once served as the winter residence of the Dalai Lama. From afar, it looks almost unreal, like something carved directly into the mountain itself. Up close, its stairways, prayer rooms, and golden rooftops reveal centuries of devotion and history. But to truly feel Lhasa, you need to wander its old Tibetan quarter. In the streets around the sacred Jokhang Temple, life unfolds in a rhythm that hasn't changed for generations. Pilgrims spin prayer wheels as they walk clockwise around the temple. Incense smoke drifts gently through the air. Butter lamps flicker in dimly lit halls while monks chant softly in the background. It's not just sightseeing, it's stepping into a living spiritual tradition. The altitude here is intense. Even moving slowly, you'll feel your heartbeat quicken. But somehow, the calm atmosphere balances it out. Lhasa doesn't shout. It resonates. But here's the question. If this sacred city already sits at 12,000 feet on the roof of the world, how much higher can human civilization possibly go? Number 3. Bolivia. At a breathtaking 12,159 feet above sea level, Oruro proves that life at extreme altitude doesn't have to be quiet or isolated, it can be loud, colorful, and unforgettable. The city sits on the vast Altiplano, the largest high plateau in the world outside of Tibet. Stretching from southern Peru down into southwestern Bolivia for nearly 600 miles, this windswept landscape feels endless. Flat horizons, crisp mountain air, a sky so wide it almost feels unreal. Oruro was founded by the Spanish in 1606 as Real Villa de San Felipe de Austria. And for a time, it was booming. Silver mining turned this high-altitude settlement into a wealthy colonial hub. The riches pulled from the surrounding mountains shaped its architecture, culture, and identity. But when silver production declined, Oruro lost some of its economic power, though it never lost its spirit. Today, you can still feel that mining legacy woven into the city's character. Walk through the historic center and you'll find elegant colonial buildings standing proudly against the dramatic Andean backdrop. One of the most important landmarks is the Basilica of the Virgin of Sacavon, an 18th century cathedral deeply tied to the city's mining history and religious devotion. Step inside and you'll sense the blend of faith and folklore that defines Oruro. But if there's one thing that truly puts this city on the global map, it's the Oruro Carnival. Every year, thousands gather at this extreme altitude for one of the most spectacular carnival celebrations in South America. Dancers in elaborate costumes parade through the streets, performing traditional dances like the Diablada, a dramatic performance symbolizing the battle between good and evil. The music is loud. The energy is electric. The devotion is real. It's hard to believe that a city this high, where breathing can already feel like work, can explode with so much life and movement. Oruro isn't just surviving at 12,159 feet. It's celebrating. But here's something to think about. If people can throw one of the world's most vibrant carnivals at this altitude, how much higher and more extreme do the next cities on our list get? Number 2. Puno, Peru. At an astonishing 12,530 feet above sea level, Puno isn't just high, it's sky-high. Nestled on the Altiplano, this city towers over the glittering waters of Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world. To put that in perspective, Puno sits about 140 feet higher than the summit of Mount Fuji. Home to roughly 120,000 people, Puno is the main gateway to Lake Titicaca. But the real magic isn't just the lake, it's the Uros floating islands, a cluster of around 40 man-made islands constructed from reeds. Each island represents generations of ingenuity, tradition, and cultural heritage, a living testament to the city's deep-rooted identity. Exploring Puno requires a bit of effort. Flat streets are rare. Some roads are so steep that cars can't even drive on them. You'll need to rely on your own 2 feet to fully experience the city. And while it may be challenging to walk, the reward is unparalleled. Breathtaking views over the lake, glimpses of traditional life, and an atmosphere that feels untouched by time. Puno isn't just a city built high in the Andes, it's a city that challenges you to rise with it. But here's the question to leave you thinking. If humans have thrived at 12,500 feet surrounded by one of the most incredible lakes on Earth, how do the number 1 cities on this list manage to survive even higher, with thinner air and even steeper terrain? Number 1. Potosí, Bolivia. And here it is, the pinnacle of high-altitude living. Perched at an incredible 13,419 feet above sea level, Potosí holds the title of the highest city on Earth. The air is thin, the sun feels stronger, and the landscape is stark, almost otherworldly. The city clings to a cold, barren plateau at the foot of Cerro Rico, or Rich Mountain in Spanish. And the name isn't just for show. This massive peak is riddled with silver veins that made Potosi one of the wealthiest cities in the world during colonial times. The mountain itself is a labyrinth of mines. Thousands of tunnels carve through the rock like a honeycomb, and you can explore some of them with a local guide. As you walk through these passages, the stories of miners, their grueling labor, harsh conditions, and centuries of tradition become tangible. While Potosi's economic fortunes have shifted since the colonial silver boom, mining still pulses at the heart of its culture. The city and Cerro Rico are inseparable, tied together by a long history of wealth, hardship, and resilience. Every street, every building, every worn stairway tells the story of life at extreme altitude. Living here isn't easy. Every breath is a reminder of the city's lofty elevation. Yet for those who endure, Potosi offers an experience unlike anywhere else on Earth: history, culture, and altitude, all rolled into one. So here's the thought to leave you with. If humanity has thrived, mined, and built a city at 13,400 feet, how far can we push the limits of life above the clouds?